Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Every system needs a killer app. An app that shows the might and the power of a system. For the NES, it was Super Mario Bros. For the Sega Genesis, it was Sonic the Hedgehog. And for the Microsoft Xbox, it was Halo Combat Evolved. Halo Combat Evolved was not altogether that unique as of 2001, but what it did do was combine a wide variety of elements and utilize them in a compelling way. When I got back into gaming in 2003, after a 2-year hiatus, Halo Combat Evolved was the game that sold me on the Xbox over all the other systems on the market at that time. Since 2003, I have remained a bit of a Halo fan, even if I was rather disappointed by Halo 2 and the way the story continued on. Halo 1 was not just on the Xbox, it was also on the PC. The PC port was sadly overlooked at the time, but it was not overlooked by me. After my second bloody Xbox died, I went ahead and picked up the PC version so that I could continue playing it. Halo PC was, for some time, the definitive Halo 1 experience. It had better graphics and screen resolutions than the Xbox version, and seeing as how it was a game from the early 2000s, modding was actually encouraged rather than punished. It shipped with Halo Custom Edition, a utility that aided in modding the game. For a short time, I considered trying to create a mod for Halo 1, but alas, I could never quite grasp how to do it. Halo Custom Edition gave the promise of great mods that would enhance and supplement Halo 1, and many such mods came to pass. Today, we're not only going to be taking a look at Halo Combat Evolved, we are also going to be taking a look at what is possibly the greatest Halo mod of all time, Halo Single Player Version 3. First and foremost, Halo Combat Evolved was to blame for the 2-weapon rule, but it escapes my undying hatred because the rest of the game makes up for it. The 2-weapon rule is especially terrible in the mod because the modders have added a metric shit ton of awesome weapons. And that just makes the 2-weapon rule 2-weapon cruel. You've got the BR-55 battle rifle, the M60 pistol, and that's not even getting into the Covey crap. Now, when you kill the hunters, they drop their weapons, and by the great didact are the hunter weapons awesome. You have your standard fuel rod cannon, and it works quite well when turned against the hunters. You have the plasma machine gun, and it is good for taking down large groups of enemies. And then you have the plasma stream launcher, and it's probably the least useful of the bunch, as it has a long charge-up time that can leave you vulnerable. However, when said stream of plasma comes in contact with an enemy, they usually go down in one hit. Hunters are far more prevalent in this mod than they were in the original game, and thus you really need to have some sort of heavy weapon in your secondary slot. The battle rifle is quite excellent and is a good general purpose weapon like it usually is in the later Halo games. And you can even get several variants. You can get a suppressed version, and one with an underslung grenade launcher that is quite useful late game. The DMR from Reach is in this game, and I personally found it to be somewhat lacking in stopping power, and I generally never used it. One rather, shall we say, memorable enemy from Halo 2 was the Jackal Sniper, and guess what? That enemy makes an appearance in this game and is just as deadly. Yes, the Jackal Sniper appears in the mod, and by the great Simo can they slot you from a distance. And really, they make the game that much more fun / difficult. Late game, you get access to the mod's version of the SAW from Halo 4, the M247H turret, and by the great FN is it absolutely required late game, as by that point, you are fighting massive groups of enemies, and the rather limited BR-55 is just not enough to stem the tide. There are a few new grenade types added to the game, with the most fun being the gravity grenade. It sucks all the enemies towards it and then explodes. However, it is very easy to suck yourself up by accident, so use with caution. And speaking of grenades, enemies throw grenades far more and with better accuracy than they did in the base game. So keep a lookout, or you may find yourself both sucked and blown up, that is. One rather annoying aspect of this mod is the fact that it lacks the MA5B combat rifle. Instead, it has the combat rifle from Reach. Not only does it not hold the 62 rounds, it also does not look nearly as cool. The MA5B was the signature weapon of Combat Evolved, and all the other combat rifles in the later Halo games just never measured up. That it is missing from its own bloody game is just a big missed opportunity to have the definitive MA5B model. Well, at least it does appear in Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, although they get the rifle sound wrong. I don't get it. They have access to the original sound files. Why don't they just gotta use it? It's like Alien 3 and the goddamn pulse rifle. One of the selling points of the PC version of Halo 1 was that it had new weapons and vehicles in the multiplayer. In the mod, one of the original Halo 1 PC weapons shows up in the single player. The Flammenwerfer, and by the great librarian, is it glorious! It basically turns you into death incarnate, but be careful to not set yourself on fire. One really cool thing the mod does is it allows the Covenant to use human weapons. In the original instruction manual and in the novel Fall of Reach, it's mentioned that the Covenant would rather die than use human weapons. This was likely done to explain programming limitations in the original Halo Combat Evolved. And later games dropped this. Here, the Covenant will use human weapons if they have access to them. So yes, you can potentially face Jackals armed with sniper rifles and brutes armed with rocket lawn chairs. One of the greatest aspects of Halo Combat Evolved was how it was able to integrate vehicular combat. Halo was not just a first-person shooter, and one of the many memorable aspects of the game was the fact that in many levels you could hop into a vehicle and tear ass across the countryside, blowing up everything in sight. The chain gun armed Warthog is yet another iconic element of Halo. In the mod, we have numerous awesome vehicles to choose from. You have the base Warthog, the Gauss Warthog, and the anti-air Warthog. That particular variant appeared in the multiplayer for Halo 1 PC. Sadly, I didn't get to try out the anti-air Warthog because it was blown up by a Wraith tank. But I got my revenge by hijacking that tank. Yes, the hijacking in Halo 2 has been fully implemented into Halo Combat Evolved, and the mod loves to give you numerous chances to steal Wraith tanks, be they anti-air or standard. This mod is less of a remake mod and more of a celebration of all things Halo, and it even pays tribute to Halo Wars. The Mammoth, Grizzly tank from Halo Wars makes an appearance and is just awe-inspirational. However, it is quite inaccurate, and it's hard to pull off long-range shots with it. The Gun Goose appears and is kinda crap, it's rather weak, and you are easily thrown from it due to the terrain, but at least it's there and is an option. Halo Combat Evolved really went above and beyond when it came to its gameplay. It was not content to give you one or two ground vehicles. Oh no! It also gave you flying vehicles in 2001, no less. When you got the Banshee, you knew you were playing something truly next-gen. Here was a game where not only did you get to shoot through well-made levels, you also got to drive around in a goddamn tank, but to top it all off, you got to hop in a bloody fighter and strafe ground targets. If this was a modern-day first-person shooter, all those segments would be on rails. In the mod, you have access to the Halo 2 Banshee, and personally, I was never a fan of that particular version. In Halo 1, you could hover with the Banshee, and it was quite versatile. In Halo 2, the Banshee was always moving forward no matter what, and it made strafing rather difficult. But, and this is a jet-powered bum, the modders gave me exactly what I wanted in the guise of the AV-22 Sparrowhawk. It is nothing short of amazing. You have machine guns, missiles, and you can hover just like the Banshee of old. In the mod, there are numerous dogfights to be had, and there are numerous targets to be strafed. And since this is Halo, if you find it easier to land, get out and snipe, you can do just that. Play your way in 2001. Oh wait, all games back then considered the player an integral part of the experience instead of just as an impediment. SPV3 updates the graphics for Halo Combat Evolved quite a bit. I would say it's at least high-tier Halo 2, if low-tier Halo 3 in terms of graphical complexity. And that is quite significant since this mod is only running on the original Halo 1 engine. The mouth flaps still are a bit phony, but that is only one small graphical deficiency. Everything is highly detailed, and in most places the texture work is quite good. There are also numerous little graphical details that you will only start to pick up as you play the game more and more. Just look at the graphical effect for the regenerating elite shields. Nothing short of jaw-dropping on the Halo 1 engine. The mod also allows you to play the game in high screen resolutions, and you can even modify the FOV. Prior to playing this mod, I never really paid that much attention to FOV, but on a lark, I bumped up the FOV to 100, and now I can't really enjoy games with zoomed-in FOVs. Thanks, SPV3! Once you realize how much better having a high FOV is, it really is hard to go back to really zoomed-in games. And I highly recommend bumping up the FOV in the mod. Sure, it's not how the game was originally, but it does give you a much more refined experience. Keep in mind, though, that you will have one or two graphical glitches here and there. The HUD has been changed and more closely resembles the HUD seen in Halo Reach. It's easy to see and very sleek. The mod itself is very stable, and I never had any crashes to desktop. But if you exit the game mid-level and want to continue it later, continuing is a little counterintuitive. You cannot just go to Continue Game. Rather, you need to go to the chapter you are currently playing, and then you will be able to carry on from where you left off. Unlike in base Halo PC, all the levels are available from the start, and the difficulty settings have been changed. The lowest difficulty is now normal, with the highest difficulty being noble, a reference to Noble Team in Halo Reach. The mod is much more difficult than base Halo 1, but its difficulty is offset by more powerful weapons and armor enhancements. You have 3 different armor enhancements: Health Regen, which is almost required late game, Sprint, which I almost never used, and Visor. Something you would think that the super high-tech Mjolnir armor would have built in instead of, well, a white light flashlight. But remember, Halo equals 80-ish future. The visor works well enough, but there are not really enough dark areas to justify its use. And in super dark areas of the Maw, you will survive longer if you have health regen. It is often joked that the Air Force is an even bigger danger than the enemy. Well, in SPV3, there's some validity to that. The mod arms the Pelican dropships with a chin cannon and bombs. The mod does not tell you that they are armed with bombs. The chin cannon is fairly obvious, and you will never be hit by it. But the Pelicans love to drop bombs right on top of your bloody head. So you will be fighting the enemy only to get blown up randomly. It took an inordinate amount of time for me to realize that the Pelicans were blowing the crap out of me. So whenever the Pelicans are around, hunker down and wait until they leave. On a good note, the Pelicans do drop more than death. They will resupply you now and again, Halo 2 style. And that, incoming at least, is most welcome. One last thing to note is that all systems will not be compatible with SPV3, and you may need to download an extra file to get it working. Said file is easy enough to find via a simple search with the search engine of your choice. Music for Halo is as iconic as the gameplay, with the Halo theme being more or less the Super Mario Bros. Theme equivalent for Xbox and Microsoft as a whole. Voice acting is damn good and was amazing for 2001, although I always felt that Sierra 117 could have emoted just a little bit more. In the mod, some voice acting has been added, and it is of high quality and sounds like it was recorded on professional quality microphones. Now, we're going to go level by level and examine Halo Combat Evolved in detail. Halo Combat Evolved consists of 10 massive levels, and the mod gives you the choice of either playing the original Silent Cartographer level or an evolved one. The intro to Halo is exquisitely done. The Halo ring in the original game looked amazing and looks even more amazing here, and was something that inspired wonder in the player. The Pillar of Autumn itself was a rather unique starship design that just looked mean. The intro tells you everything you need to know in just a few words and relies upon audio-visual shorthand to get its point across. Captain Keyes is not a particularly original character, but then again, he doesn't need to be. He needs to be instantly recognizable as the Captain. His voice actor puts in a great performance and sells the role of Captain Keyes. And while he is not in the game altogether that long, he leaves a lasting impression on the player. This is a man that deserves respect due to his actions and force of personality. Two things here. One, Keyes' face looks way better than it does in Halo Anniversary. And in the original game, his uniform hilariously said, "Hello, my name Keyes." Damn, I miss the era when game developers had actual freedom. Cortana, I'm sorry to say, looks kind of crap. The modders were going for a more Halo 2 look for her, and it just doesn't work at all. The original Cortana look would have suited this game better. The Halo 1 graphics engine just cannot support this style of Cortana, and thus she is rather distracting and her mouth does not work quite right. And besides, I prefer short hair Cortana above all others. The design of Cortana is also shorthand for AI. She looks otherworldly while still looking human. The voice is intelligent but soft. When you see Cortana, your brain immediately thinks AI. After the intro, we cut to the hushed casket. Master Chief is of course in cryo, and it's time to let him out and show off how cool he looks. And by the great THOR, does the chef look amazing. And his armor even has a little 117, which is a reference to the Halo short film, The Package. Unlike in the original game, you can thankfully skip past all the tutorial crap and get straight into the fighting. For the first minute or two, you have to run from enemies, and the run to the bridge is absolutely fraught with peril, and is even more epic in the mod. The mod does add a few turrets that help keep the elites and brutes from overrunning the defensive positions. When you make it to the bridge area, you see the epic new Pillar of Autumn logo, and enter into yet another iconic moment.
Captain Keyes.
Good to see you, Master Chief. Things aren't going well.
Everything about the first few minutes of Halo would go on to be referenced numerous times in later games and books and other media. Most notably, the lack of starting weapons. This would be referenced in Halo 2 when the chef says, "I need a weapon." Your first weapon in the game is the M6D pistol, specifically Captain Keyes' personal pistol, that for some reason is not kept loaded. In the mod, there is a body on the ground, so that is how you get your initial starting ammo. In the original game, the ammo just magically appears in your inventory. Your first fights in the Pillar of Autumn are rather instructive and do a good job of introducing you to the fast-paced gameplay of Halo. Every firefight is generally entertaining, as the enemies in Halo are actually quite mobile and can soak up a good amount of damage. This mod introduces brutes into Halo 1, which is a retcon that makes sense, since with the release of the novel Halo Contact Harvest, we know that the brutes have been fighting humanity since the very beginning. The mod increases the size of the Pillar of Autumn level considerably and gives us some great areas to fight through. Eventually, you make it off the Pillar of Autumn, and in another great cutscene, you see it turn and enter a path of destruction to the ring. And now, we enter the level where everyone's mind was blown. Pillar of Autumn is a great level, but for many it was just a standard level. Its shooting was a little higher quality than usual, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Then, you make it onto Halo. The game opens up considerably, but for the first bits of Halo, it's just an above average FPS. Nothing really that different. Then, Echo 419 shows up. Echo 419 is another character that utilizes audio-visual shorthand to get a point across. She has a voice that is friendly and cheerful, and she is always there to help Master Chef and Cortana. Sadly, no other game would have a character quite like this, and thus later games lacked the sheer character that Combat Evolved has. Echo 419 drops off a Warthog, and now the game really opens up, and thus Halo goes from an above-average FPS and becomes a legendary one. In Halo, you have to help rescue Marines. In the SPV3 version, you do that, and well, you also do this.
Echo 205 to Cortana, we are on our way. Thanks for clearing that LZ.
Easier said than done. Inbound Phantoms, Chief.
Yes, there is this massive base that you have to single-handedly save from the Covenant. And it is glorious. It is amazing, and it is post-2018. In no modern game would you see something as literally epic as this. In a modern game, you would likely fight about half of this battle, and the other half would be one massive, overindulgent cutscene. This battle right here shows you what gaming is meant to be. So Halo continues on, and you continue collecting Marines. One really funny moment happens here. There is a spawning glitch on the Phantom dropship. The brutes are dropped one on top of the other, and thus you can easily wipe them all out with your vehicle. Once you have saved the last group of Marines, you learn that Cap Keys has been kidnapped by the Coveys, and it's up to you to be a bad enough Spartan 2 to rescue him from the clutches of the Dread Covenant. After the sheer epicness of Halo, Truth and Reconciliation slows the game down a bit, and is just a general first-person shooting level. The outdoor segments are tough and fun and really highlight why I hate checkpoints. The points are few and far between, and if you die, you lose a significant amount of progress. And trust me, Truth and Rec is not an easy level by any means. One really awesome thing is the fact that the Marines are decked out in ODST gear, and canonically, there were ODSTs under a Major Silva on Halo at this time. The ship levels are claustrophobic, and I personally found them to be a bit boring. Once you rescue Captain Keyes, you are now playing an escort mission, and while Keyes is a great ship commander, he is not really a ground pounder, and thus is kind of thick. Truth and Rec ends in a suitably epic way. You capture a Covenant dropship, a graphically updated Spectre dropship. This is one of only 2 times this type of dropship appears in the mod at all, as all the rest of the dropships are the Halo 2 Phantom dropship. This is excellent attention to detail. This scene also shows just how badass Keyes really is. Cortana says that she can pilot the dropship. Keyes says, he got this. And then hunters show up. He got this. In any other game, you would take the turret and kill them. In Halo Combat Evolved, Keyes crushes them with the dropship like a boss. That is how you write a proper commanding officer character. Truth and Rec kind of drags. And then this happens. You are in the back of a dropship, you land and hit the beach like it's fucking Iwo Jima, replete with the Halo theme blaring in your ear. This is still nothing short of jaw-dropping, and in 2003, well, I was rather impressed to say the least. In the modern era, most of this would be a cutscene, and thus crap. What we are looking at here is the evolved version of the Silent Cartographer level, and it is, of course, post-2018 in greatness. It takes the bones of the already epic Silent Cartographer and simply ups the complexity by about, 17 years. The driving segments are amazing, and the indoor shootouts are quite fun and difficult. One annoying moment takes place right here. You have to try and jump these platforms, and it's really kind of super finicky. And you can find yourself dying quite quickly, and the checkpoint sends you way back. Pro tip, take the Warthog and take the easiest path. You will be less inclined to chuck the keyboard out the window. All throughout the game, you find data pads and terminals, and they fill in the details as to what is going on. They are fairly well written and give great backstory on the factions and the motivations of the characters. Yeah, it's a little silly that they just leave these data pads on the ground for anyone to see, but well, Master Chief has a white light flashlight. Some things must be sacrificed for dramatique. The terminals work a bit better here than in the mainline Halo series because they're just text and not massive overblown cutscenes. Text logs are by far the best types of logs as you, the player, use your imagination to paint the picture. It also means you don't have to listen to crappy voice acting either. This level introduces the ceremonial elite. They can take a crap ton of damage, but I was ready for them because a data pad told me that they can shrug off bullets, and thus when I faced one, I hit them with a heavy weapon. I love it when games reward exploration. The one aspect that I do find kind of annoying is the fact that old Johnny 1117 boy never makes use of any of the information from the terminals. I get it, gameplay/story segregation, but in so many games where there are text logs, you would think that after reading so many, that the player character would know what is going on. Sadly, most text logs just work as dramatic irony most of the time. You know what's going on, but the PC is as in the dark as ever. Eventually, you find the silent cartographer, and in the mod, it looks amazing. And now, it's time to assault the control room. Assault on the control room is yet another high-quality level. This is yet another gaming memory that sticks with you for a lifetime, and the mod makes it even better. The areas are wider, and the battles more frantic. One of the issues with many big mods is dead space. Oftentimes in mods, you are crawling along the same boring terrain with nothing to do. That is not the case here. As you fight your way to the control room, you face opposition the entire way. Two things to mention about the snow level here. One, back in 2003, I was using an ancient tube TV that required an adapter to use RC cables. And thus, the snow was really washed out. And what's really funny is that in 2018, the sheer level of bloom makes it somewhat washed out. And two, you learn from a terminal that the snow is due to Halo's monitor, 343 Guilty Spark, wanting to freeze the flood. Drama is important, but sometimes it can be a little silly. You get to the control room and Cortana jumps in, and this happens.
No, that can't be. Oh, these Covenant fools. They must have known. There must have been signs.
Slow down. You're losing me.
The Covenant found something. Buried in this ring. Something horrible. And now they're afraid.
Something buried? Where?
The captain. We've got to stop the captain.
Keys? What
The
are we...
weapons cache he's looking for. It's not really... We can't let him get inside.
I don't understand.
There's no time. Get out of here. Find keys. Stop him. Before it's too late.
You know, Cortana, all you had to say to Mr. Chef was... Unknown, virulent alien, do not let out. Stop Captain from letting out. Or, you know, you can even make it a little simpler and just say, bad alien, kill, kill! Instead, she doesn't say what the problem actually is, and thus, Halo Chief is in the dark. It's good for generating suspense, but does not make much logical sense. What also does not make much logical sense is the fact that Cortana cannot keep in contact with the Chief and update him about the new enemy. Still, all that can be forgiven due to the next level and its well done suspense. Halo 1 and this level both know how to keep the player guessing. At no time does the game allude to this new enemy. The marketing material did not. The rather well-appointed instruction manual did not. Nothing prior to this point even gave a hint as to what is about to happen. This is one of only a few games that was able to keep something secret right up until the point 343 Guilty Spark starts up. This is one of only a few games that was able to keep something secret until the right point. 343 Guilty Spark starts up normal enough. You fight some Covenant, you hear some spotty radio transmissions, and what you hear from those spotty radio transmissions is a bit strange. You hear that the UNSC forces entered a facility and ran into some trouble. You then see some damaged architecture and find a crazed Marine saying that you won't take him, and he starts shooting at you. But what caused all of this is kept just out of sight. You finally fight to a door with an unlocker on it. And this is where the mod spoils the flood. You see flood hive structures in this room. In the original game, there was nothing which further increased suspense. You find a dead Marine and play back his helmet camera. It shows the Marines en route to the Forerunner facility you are currently in. In the original game, some random rock played in the dropship. In the mod, Paint It Black is played as was originally intended. It is here that you learn that the captain was attacked by the Flood. In the original game, this was quite an effective reveal, and I'm not sure why the modders chose to give it away with these Flood hive structures. The Flood, ladies and gentlemen, are the second antagonist for the first Halo trilogy. They are essentially Bioborg. They assimilate species and control them through a hive mind, headed up by a supreme intelligence called the Grave Mind. In the mod, you face a good variety of Flood combat and carrier forms. Finally, the Jackals get their own infection form, and they make a quite creepy sound when they attack you. As you fight your way out of the Forerunner facility, you will encounter some Marines. But they cannot really be saved, as the difficulty increases considerably, and it's all you can do to keep yourself alive. Also, there are animations for humans and Covenant getting converted into Flood forms, and they are amazing to say the least. You eventually fight your way out of the Forerunner facility and are whisked away by 343 Guilty Spark. Thus, we enter the library. A rather maligned level these days, but back when I first played it, I found it to just be another generic level, if a bit difficult. So, the level being hated could have been legitimate, or its hatred could have been manufactured by the internet. All I know is that at the time, I found it to be just another level, and actually disliked Truth and Wreck more. Here the level has been improved considerably from its initial form. You fight through some Covenant checkpoints this time, and they provide some adequate firepower. And then you find a lone Wraith tank. It's Blitzkrieg time! Crank up that sabotage! If you hate, either legitimately or due to the internet, the library level, getting the Wraith tank ought to change one's mind. You find some data pads scattered around the level, chronicling the adventures of one doomed space marine. With standard human strength and weapons, he gets pretty far before running out of ammo and getting cut into tiny chunks. I found his data pads to be quite tragic. This doomed space marine was elaborated on in the novel Halo: The Flood, and like in the game, MC finds his rather battered body and is quite impressed by his fighting prowess. The point of the library is to get the index for the monitor, and at the end of the level, you do. Overall, the library redux is nothing short of excellent and shows that thanks to the fans, even the roughest diamond can be polished to a mirror sheen. Now it's time to take to the air into Betrayals. You take the index to the control room, you insert the index only for nothing to happen. Cortana just saved the asses of everyone in the galaxy by stopping the firing of the Halo ring. Had it fired, the entire galaxy would be quite devoid of life. You see, the Halo ring is designed to kill potential Flood host organisms. 343 Guilty Spark gets angered that his containment protocol was not carried out, and thus sicks his sentinels on you. Depending on the difficulty level, surviving the initial onslaught of sentinels can be rather difficult, and even on normal I found myself getting burned down quite a few times. The mod starts you up with a Jackal's shield. Yes, after 17 years, you finally get to use one. Sadly, they are rather useless and should be discarded immediately. Once you have dealt with the sentinels, it's time for a massive fight. You fight through the area you first fought through in Assault on the Control Room, but this time you get access to some aircraft, and the mission here is to sabotage Halo to buy time. 2 Betrayals is by far the most modified and most impressive level in the mod. It has numerous new areas, and it really makes good use of the flying vehicles. There are numerous dogfights to be had, and ground battles to be fought, and firefights to survive. The plan to stop Halo is thus: overload the Pillar of Autumn's fusion reactors and destroy the ring. In order to do that, you have to find Keys and get his command codes. Once you have finished sabotaging Halo, Cortana finds Keys and whisks you away to the Truth and Wreck once more. The battles get even more frantic, and the difficulty increases a bit. And as near as I can tell, you still have to jump off the ship. Many people just blunder down this hole, but Halo veterans know better. But alas, you still have to take the plunge. In the novel for Halo 1, Chief remarks on how cold that coolant was. You fight back to the ship and then through said ship, facing Covenant and Flood alike. All the while, Keys is contacting you and telling you not to save him. The game actually adds a few Keys lines that were either cut, or they got someone who sounded remarkably like Keys' original voice actor. Sadly, you only find Keys as part of a proto-Gravemind. Chief has only one choice, and that is to crack Keys' skull and get his neural lace with the codes. You break out of the ship, and in the mod, just before you escape, you find a datapad with a message from Keys. It's very creepily written, as it shows that Keys is becoming Gravemind and thus is part of the Flood. How he wrote this, I have no idea, but it makes the already emotional loss of Keys even more poignant. You escape the flooded Truth and Wreck and head for the Pillar of Autumn. The mod takes you through the Pillar of Autumn, and herein you fight both the Flood and the Covenant. In the mod, the power is down, and thus the level is extremely dark, giving it a very creepy atmosphere. And it's also quite tough, as there are a crap ton of Flood to fight. Eventually, you reach the bridge, and 343 Guilty Spark calls you to gloat, as is his wont, and tells you that he has stopped the ship's self-destruct mechanism. Cortana is at a loss, but Master C, ever the tactician, comes up with the simple plan of blowing shit up. And thus, you yo-jo it down to the engineering facility to put a couple rockets into the fusion stack. The finale of Halo 1 is nothing short of exquisite. There's no big boss fight because that would be cliché. Instead, you have to hop into a Warthog and race to the finish, dodging Flood, Coveys, and obstacles. It was, in 2001, and today, a rather unique finish for a first-person shooter, and one that is rather difficult to top. Your main goal is to reach an auxiliary landing pad so that you can be picked up by Echo 419. And here is yet another tragic moment. Echo 419 is shot down by the Foul Covenant. Through audio-visual shorthand, we care a great deal for Echo 419 and are grieved by her loss. Not every character needs massive, long-winded cutscenes to get a point across. Through just a few words, we come to like Echo 419 and are sad to see her die. With Echo 419 gone, it's time to find an alternate means of egress. And that alternate means is a longsword starfighter. And thus, you put pedal to the metal and drive to the launch bay. When I got out of the Warthog, I phased through the bloody floor, and I thought I was dead. But it seems that the modders planned for this, and thus there was a ramp for me to walk up. You hop aboard the starfighter and watch the fireworks. And on another part of the Halo ring, a Pelican dropship was also taking off, loaded with a few more survivors, including Sergeant Avery Johnson. The chief escapes in time and looks out upon the ruins of Halo and says,
No, I think we're just getting started.
Kind of cocky there, Master C. How did you know it was gonna blow up that big? And thus, Halo comes to a close. The end. But it was not to be the end for Halo. No, it was Halo's enemies that would die. Yes, and Halo Chief would fight on in the name of the Emperor and the Golden Throne. Having played the game in 2003, I still had to wait a year for Halo 2 to come out, and that bloody game couldn't have come fast enough. In the run-up to Halo 2, I acquired a bunch of Halo gubbins, from models of Master Chief to a bloody calendar that I still have to this day. Sure, it's not March 6, 2004 now, but who knows what the future may hold? Like with many people back in the day, I pre-ordered the version of Halo 2 with the metal case, because metal makes it more Halo-y. What's really funny is the basic version of Halo 2, evidently, is actually rarer than the special edition. When I finally got it, I rushed home and popped it into my Xbox and was promptly disappointed. I felt that the game was literally worse in every conceivable way. The story was nowhere near as focused, the characters were shallow and uninteresting, and the whole game just felt blech, dull and uninteresting. And the less said about that horrid ending, the better. At the time, I tried to like Halo 2. Hell, when someone said the campaign sucked, I was like, no it didn't, you suck! After a while, I agreed, and yeah, it did suck, and does suck. Surprisingly though, in this brave new world of ours, people are starting to like Halo 2's campaign for some reason. Well, if you like it, good for you. You suck! Halo 3 was, in my estimation, better than Halo 2, but I felt it was only 85% as good as Halo 1. The characters were a little bit better this time around, and the story was far better than Halo 2's story, but it still felt a bit unfocused compared to Halo 1's. And finally, the ending was actually good, even if it was only a rehash of Halo 1's. Halo 3 would also be the only Halo game that I would ever play multiplayer, and I have to say that I enjoyed it immensely. Halo 4 was a game that was rather contentious. I enjoyed it because it had ties to the books, it focused more on Master C and Cortana, and it felt more emotional. But looking back on it now, I have to say that it was only 65% as good as Halo 1, and it went on a bit too long in its cutscenes and succumbed to the asshole rule of the modern era. In order to make the main character look good, you have an authority figure be an asshole, thus making the main character appear better by default. The captain of the Infinity, Captain Del Rio, was an anti-Keys. You wouldn't really trust the man, and he acted like a blowhard. Halo 1 did not need an asshole to make Master C look good, as at that time, Master C was able to share the limelight with other characters. Overall, for me at least, Halo 1 will remain my single favorite Halo game of all time, as it truly is gaming perfection. And as for SPV3, well, it turns Halo Combat Evolved into Halo Combat Refined. I highly recommend checking out both Halo Combat Evolved and the mod SPV3. Halo is without a doubt one of the best implemented first-person shooters of all time, and is in my top 20 games of all time. And so, I am Generallotz, wishing you good Halo First Strike, and good Halo Contact Harvest, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed my massively long review of Halo Combat Evolved, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you these massive game reviews.